Hi everyone, and welcome to our live Q&A session about the upcoming PSTN switch off. My name's Kelly, I'm the Partnership Manager for Phonely, and I'm really pleased to have you join us today. As many of you know, the Public Switched Telephone Network, or PSTN, has been the backbone of our communication systems for decades. However, with advances in technology, we are transitioning to more modern digital networks. Today, we're here to discuss what this switch off means for you, how it might affect you, and what steps you can take to prepare for it. Most importantly, we're here to address any worries and concerns that you may have. I'm joined by our Marketing Director, Bryn Thompson, and Technical Director, Chris Venables, who will be able to provide some insights and answers to your questions. And we're also assisted by the lovely Hannah, who will be sorting through and asking the questions on your behalf. Before we begin, though, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping items to ensure a smooth and productive experience for everyone and ensure that we all get the most out of the session. So the session will last for around 30 to 45 minutes, and we'll do our best to answer as many questions as possible within this time frame. Please submit your questions through the Q&A function at the bottom of the screen on the right to ensure that they are seen. We have set this so that you can do so anonymously as well. To ensure the session flows in an easy to follow way, we will try our best to categorize the questions according to type and cover them in when most appropriate. If you have a follow-up question or need clarification, feel free to add that in the Q&A as well. The session is being recorded, so will be available to view after the event should you wish to refer back to it or if you've missed anything. If you experience any technical difficulties during the session, please let us know via the Q&A again or by emailing us at hello@phonely.co.uk. So without further ado, let's dive into the discussion. Before we go to Hannah for the first question, though, I'll hand over to Bryn, who will give us a bit of an overview of what the PSTN switch off actually is and why it's happening.
Thanks, Kelly. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. For many years, our phones have relied on the Public Switched Telephone Network, or PSTN. That is the traditional copper wire network that goes into your house and has been running your landline for a while. But just like cassette tapes and fax machines, the PSTN is becoming outdated, and that's why the big switch is happening. We're moving to a more modern digital network by January 2027. This means that all our old landlines using the PSTN will no longer work. The new system is being replaced by something called VoIP, Voice over Internet Protocol. It uses your internet connection to make phone calls, offering more clearer sound and more features than you're used to before. So what does this mean for you? Well, by 2027, you're likely to need to switch to a VoIP phone service. And phone providers and organisations like us are here to help you understand your options and make the switch smoothly. We'll be taking your questions throughout the session, so do not hesitate to ask, and I'll just pass you over to Hannah now, who will come with our first question.
Thank you, Bryn. So yes, we have a few questions already. We'll start with the first question. What are the main differences between the old PSTN and the new digital network?
Yeah, I'll take. Sorry.
Yeah, you go on, then you go, Chris.
So the main difference from the consumer's point of view is very little. So it opens up lots of opportunities for advanced features and whatnot by moving over to a VoIP-based service. But if you don't want to take advantage of any of those, then you can still carry on using your old phone and your old line. You'll just need to plug in an adapter or something similar. But fundamentally, it's a technology underneath the service that is changing to the consumer. There doesn't need to be much change at all, really.
Thank you, Chris. Next question. Why are they switching off copper lines?
I'll take this one. Well, it's an industry-led thing. So sort of BT/Openreach have decided to move ahead with this. It's mostly probably around sort of cost saving, because the old PSTN network is so costly to keep running. They're sort of moving over to the digital technology, which will be a lot cheaper for them to run. So it's probably a big cost saving exercise, but maintaining the old the old system, yeah, it's very costly and time consuming.
Thank you. Next question. When exactly is the switch off taking place?
So currently it's touted to take place, it's touted to finish at the end of 2027. So it's being phased in, or phased out, should I say, over that time. the deadline has changed numerous times over the past sort of couple of years. So up until just a few weeks ago, it's supposed to be the end of 2025. So I wouldn't take it for gospel that it's going to take place before the end of 2027, but that's what the deadline is at the moment.
Next question, will my phone line be interrupted during the switch off?
Well, you shouldn't see any interruption really. It should be sort of like a seamless change from one to the other. The most that you'll probably have to do is unplug your phone from like the old white BT wall socket, your master socket, and plug it into the back of a router or an adapter, which will be plugged into the back of your router, and then your phone line should be sort of moved over straight away. So in most cases, it will be a seamless switch over.
Thank you. Are the quality of the calls as good as traditional lines?
In the vast majority of cases, they'll be better than traditional lines. Traditional lines you use what's called a much lower, much less bandwidth. They're lesser quality, but the quality very much depends on your connectivity. So as long as you've got a good broadband connection, you will most likely have a much better quality line using VoIP.
Next question. I've heard that digital phone lines will not work in a power cut. Is this true?
Yes, and sort of no, but mostly yes. So your digital landline relies on you having internet via broadband, and your broadband router relies on having power. So in a power cut, your broadband would probably stop working. There are solutions out there that you can help with this. So you can get something called a UPS, which is an uninterruptible power source, which is just like a big battery pack that you can sort of plug into your router and your phone to keep those running. There's also solutions out there where like call apps, so you can have an app on your mobile phone where you can answer your landline and make and receive calls on your mobile phone app as well, which can be there. But we would advise having like a mobile phone around just in case there is a power cut.
Next question. I live in a rural area with limited internet access. Are there any provisions for areas like mine?
Yeah, so I mean, access in rural areas is one of the reasons why the DECT keeps getting pushed back for the switch off, because it is a big challenge. There are more and more options available to people living in rural areas. Not least quite commonly known now Starlink offering. So that there are more and more options. If you are in a really rural area where you still can't get a decent broadband, BT are rolling out an interim solution called SOTAP, which will enable you to have a phone connection very similar to what you've got now, but it's only for a short period of time. It's only supposed to be up until 2029. Just to give sort of industry really time to catch up and get decent connectivity out to those rural areas. Yeah, so it's really dependent on connectivity and those connectivity providers.
Thank you, Chris. Next question. My elderly parents rely on their landline. How will vulnerable groups be supported during this transition?
So your provider, as a rule, whoever your provider is at the moment, will contact you when the time has come for you to be changed over, and they should help you manage that seamlessly. There are obviously some providers out there that don't currently offer landline services, whereas they used to. So I would advise, if you're looking to change your contract or anything or move to a new provider, always check with them first to make sure that they are still offering landline services and what they can do for you with the digital switch off and the move over, just to make sure that they can continue providing that service for you later down the line. But they will be, they will have provisions there to help, sort of vulnerable people sort of go through this.
It's probably worth mentioning as well that for for those that don't want any change, they want to carry on using their own handset, and that will be an option for them. It'll involve, maybe plugging in an adapter or plugging a handset into the back of a new router if they already have one. Ongoing, they won't have to necessarily learn anything new. They don't have to learn a new handset. They don't use a service in any other way than they're used to.
Thank you, Chris. Another question we just had through: how will this affect personal alarms such as Telecare?
So that's a big challenge for the industry, and it's really down to the Telecare providers to sort of really engage. There's lots of different Telecare providers out there, and some of those solutions will work absolutely seamlessly with a VoIP-based solution with a digital phone line. Some don't, and those Telecare providers need to, adapt their service. They need to come up with solutions for that. But for those that are reliant on Telecare devices, and if those Telecare devices don't work particularly well or at all with a digital line, they're not going to be forced over to a digital line. They're going to, we've still got a couple of years before before they're switched off altogether. And if by that point there's still Telecare providers out there where their service doesn't work with a digital line, then there's a SOTAP option, which I mentioned just a moment ago, which will be offered to those guys to see them all the way through to 2029. So it's really down to the Telecare providers to make sure that their services work on a digital line, and you'd need to contact your Telecare provider to make sure that's the case. But they've got plenty of time to make whatever changes they need to make sure that their service continues running.
Thank you, Chris. I think you did touch on this one. I've had another question asking, can I keep my existing phone or do I need to purchase a new one?
Yeah, so I'll steal that one off you, Chris. So yeah, you can keep your existing phone. You don't need to get a new physical digital VoIP handset unless you want to. A lot of the newer ones do come with sort of enhanced features that you wouldn't have normally had on a traditional phone line system. But there are adapters around that allows you just to convert your existing phone over to a VoIP phone. Some providers are also given like routers, so with their broadband router they've just got a little socket that you just plug your phone in the back of the router, and that'll convert your old existing phone over to a digital VoIP phone as well.
Thank you, Bryn. Another question we've had through: will my provider contact me or do I need to call them to make the switch?
Do you want that one, Chris?
Yeah, I'll take that one. There's not a straightforward answer to that one, because all providers are approaching this in different ways. There's nothing stopping anyone from proactively calling their provider and getting things moving now, which I'd probably recommend doing, because as it comes closer to the deadline, there's going to be more and more demand on the service providers. There's going to be a bit of a rush at the end, I predict. So it probably does make sense to sort of proactively get moved over before that rush happens. But I think there'll be a mix. Some providers will proactively BT themselves, being quite proactive at the moment, going out and holding seminars and all sorts of stuff to raise awareness. Some providers, I suspect some providers will send out the new equipment that's needed, and they'll almost switch people over without them even realizing. So you'll get a new router, for example, and it'll come with some instructions and tell you to plug your handset into the router instead of your BT master socket. And what you're doing is switching over to a digital phone line. You just might not even realize that that's what you're doing. So I think in some cases you will be contacted. You just won't realize that, what's going on, which is not necessarily a bad thing. But there's a lot of providers out there, so I think they're all going to handle it in different ways. Some will be good, some will be bad, but no one's going to be cut off.
Thank you, Chris. Another question we've had through: can I keep my existing telephone number?
Yes, you can. So unlike sort of traditional analog phones where you couldn't move your number, if you moved out of the exchange area that you were in, you couldn't take your landline number with you. With the new digital system, you could be moving to any other part of the country. So you could be moving from like Aberdeen to Devon, for example, and you could take your Aberdeen number with you and have that in Devon, and people can still call you down there. So with like the VoIP digital landline technology, your number is even more portable than it was before. So yes, you can keep your number.
Thank you, Bryn. Next question. I run a small business. Will I need to invest in any new equipment for the office?
No, well, yes and no. It depends on what equipment you've already got in your office and what setup you've already got. If you've got an old style phone system running off, say, an ISDN line or something like that, then you will need to upgrade. But if you've already got sort of like VoIP handsets, you wouldn't need to upgrade. You'd already be using sort of digital technology. But it's best to check with your existing provider to what you have and what you need to do.
Thank you. Next question. How does porting work?
So porting, from your point of view, from the consumer point of view, is very straightforward. You just need to fundamentally give the telecoms company permission, your new telecoms company permission to retrieve your number from your old telecoms company, and then they would take care of it from beginning to end for you. So they'll be able to tell you whether the port was accepted, which in vast majority of cases it will be, and then they'll be able to give you a date as to when that number is gonna switch over. It's worth bearing in mind that fundamentally a phone number belongs to you as a consumer. It doesn't belong to the phone company, and that's your right to move that number to whatever provider you wish. But the actual, the actual process of porting a number is very straightforward for the consumer.
Thank you, Chris. Somebody else has asked, my number got disconnected a while back. Can I get it back?
Well, yes and no. Again, it depends on how far back that your number got disconnected. If it was in the last 30 days, then we should have no problem getting your number back and reconnecting it for you. If it's longer than that, it's a bit more tricky, but we can do it on a case-by-case basis. So it's just best to get in contact with your provider and see what they can do. But hopefully we'll be able to get them back. Definitely within the 30-day period, but over that, it does, as I say, it does get a bit more tricky.
Thank you, Bryn. Next question. I have a DECT phone. If I was to purchase an adapter, will I need to purchase multiple ones for each phone?
No, so DECT phones work with a single base station and then multiple handsets which connect via DECT to that base station. And it's only the base station that you'd need an adapter for. So you'd only need the one.
Thank you. Next question. I think Bryn just touched on this actually. I'm in the process of moving house. Can I take my number with me?
Yes, you can. Yeah, you just need to make sure that the new house that you're going to has got broadband or internet connection set up, and yeah, you can just theoretically take, with our service, for example, you can just take the adapter and plug that into your new broadband, and your phone would be working straight away. There's nothing you'd need to do.
Bryn made a really good point as well before, and the fact that in this new sort of VoIP world, there's no numbers are not tied down to local areas anymore, so you can move out of your area and still keep your number with you, which is just a sort of a side benefit really of moving over all the infrastructure to a digital phone infrastructure. You could retire out to Spain and still keep your low stuff number.
That'd be nice.
Next question. My provider PlusNet are not offering digital voice. Where does that leave me?
It's difficult for us to comment on sort of what PlusNet are going to be doing for you. If you're an existing customer of PlusNet, we can't say what they're going to do, but they're just not going to just switch you off. They have a duty of care to make sure that if you want your phone line, that your phone line is still there. But if you do move over to say, if you're moving to PlusNet, then you won't be able to keep your landline. You'd only be able to get broadband with them. But then you can get your phone line with someone else, like a home VoIP provider. but yeah, they're not just going to just cut you off. I guess they are owned by BT, so if you did want to keep your number, they've probably got some sort of way to move you over to BT in that way.
And going forward, traditionally, it's always considered, isn't it, that your broadband and phone provider are one and the same. You have your phone and your broadband with BT, or you have your phone and your broadband with Virgin. But going forward, that's unlikely to be the case. And PlusNet's a great example of that. PlusNet can be your broadband provider, but you're going to have to find someone else that can offer the phone service over that internet connection.
Thank you, Chris. Next question. My elderly father lives alone and I'm overseas. Are there any services that can help him set up the new equipment for him?
So, I mean, the new equipment is generally pretty simple to set up. But if they were, if they're truly unsure, I mean, there'll be phone lines, there'll be videos online that can maybe help them, that you could maybe share with them. But other than that, providers, or there's services like Age UK. Not all age. There's lots of different Age UKs around the country, and they all offer slightly different services. But some of them do have people that will go around and help you help you install like technical equipment like phones and broadband and things like that. They'll help you sort of come around and just set the equipment up the first time. And there's also another charity, I believe, as well, called ability.net, that have sort of volunteers that can go around and sort of help you get these devices installed. So there are hopefully some ideas out there for you that can help your father.
It's worth mentioning as well at this point that Age UK will also, some Age UKs will also send people around to help you complete the port forms and things like that as well. So it doesn't necessarily have to be the installation of the equipment. It might just be that you need a hand completing the form, and they'll help you do that as well. There's definitely support out there. As long as you're over 55, they'll help you, Age UK.
Thank you, Kelly. Next question, will switching cost more?
No, it shouldn't do. I mean, there's going to be a whole array of different prices, but the provision of a digital voice service is cheaper than traditional landlines now. As the old PSTN network gets older and harder to maintain, the cost of maintaining that goes up, the cost of supplying that goes up, and with the larger providers like BT Openreach wanting to, get rid of the PSTN network, they're also putting up prices to disincentivize people staying. So all those sort of market forces really are going to almost ensure that the VoIP services are going to be cheaper than the traditional PSTN services. You are still going to have to, in a lot of cases, have two providers, mind. So you're going to have an internet provider, a broadband provider, and then a voice service on top of that. But the two of those combined, almost certainly going to work out in the long run to be cheaper.
Thank you, Chris. And I think this is actually our last question. Question is, what type of internet connection do I need?
You want to take that one, Bryn?
Yeah, I can do. Generally, sort of any internet connection will do, as long as you've got a good, stable sort of connection. But it does depend on what's going on. If you've got sort of a bog standard ADSL connection, and you've got loads of people like streaming films, playing games, and things like that in the background, then that might not do, and that might start to affect the call quality. So it really depends on what the rest of the household is doing. If you've just got a basic landline, a basic broadband, and all you're using it for is phone calls, then that would be absolutely fine. And if you've got a good stable, let's say 4G, 5G router providing you internet that way, then that should work as well, as long as you're in a good reception area.
It's really down to the quality of the connection, isn't it? Rather than the type. There's lots of different types out there. You've got like your satellite connections that are becoming more prevalent, like the Starlinks now, and there's Sogea as well, which is becoming more and more popular. So there's lots of types of internet connection out there, but it's really down to the quality.
I think a lot of what we get in the office on a regular basis is, I've been told that I need to have full fibre in order for the service to work. So I think it's a bit of a myth
Yeah, there's a lot of mixed communication out there, and this rollout of fibre, really the ultimate aim, the ultimate end goal is to have the whole of the UK connected via fibre to the premises, so not just fibre to the cabinet, but which is also being SOGEA, which has become more and more popular, is an alternative to fibre to the cabinet, which is, if we had to rank the type of connections that from the best to the not so great, the top is fibre to the premises. That's top speed all the way through to your home. That's really what they want everyone to have. That's what they're aiming for everyone to have. But that drive to have everyone with fibre to the premises, it's almost running in parallel to this turning off of the PSTN. So although they're sort of they affect each other, so a good VoIP service relies on a good internet connection. They're being done completely sort of on separate paths. And then you've got fibre to their cabinet, which is being touted really. SOGEA is a replacement for that. But the fact that they're both being run in tandem, I think, is confusing the message quite a lot. There's a lot of the confusion out there still.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chris. I think that's, I don't think I've missed anything. I think that was our last question. So I'll hand back to you, Kelly, to wrap things up.
Great, thanks, Hannah. So as we come to the end of the session, we want to thank everyone who attended and participated today. For those who submitted questions that we couldn't get to, we do apologise for not being able to address them all within the time frame. We will compile the unanswered questions and provide responses in a follow-up email and feature as many as we can under the FAQ section of our website. The recording of this session will also be available for those who missed parts of it or would like to revisit the discussion, and we'll send out a link once it's ready. If you have any further questions or need additional information, please don't hesitate to contact us at hello@phonely.co.uk. And thank you once again for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you at our future events. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you. Bye.